my sort of trajectory goes is that I finished graduate school. I finished when I was 29,
Mm.
and I went straight from graduate school to Skowhegan to
Oh,
show,
wow.
showing right away
You
in
did
New
all
I
the things. Oh,
yeah,
cool.
I had like within 2 years, I had a gallery on 57th Street, a really established gallery.
Wow.
I then left that before I did the solo show that was planned to go to Deitch Projects, did that show, then started showing more and more. And I never really got a breath.
Hmm.
And I'm a very, very private person. You know, it takes a lot of effort for me to kind of like crawl out of my shell periodically to do that. And I kept kind of chugging along doing public art, and some years were better than others. You know, like exposure was always really difficult for me
Mm.
emotionally. And then in 2000, I sort of started segueing out of that a bit. Like I thought, well, I'll teach, and I did teaching for a few years, kind of stepping out of the art world more. I was teaching out of the city, and then trying to do public art, which also felt like still doing art, but out of the kind of the whole, art world gallery thing. But each one of these things it was like a shift, but it didn't actually fix it. It created different problems for me. It wasn't like it was like everything in my life got fixed and that was the solution, because teaching, I couldn't really work on my own work the way I wanted to because I was very distracted by all these other voices from the students and traveling, and it was just very difficult for me. And then the public art, I loved having stuff in the public realm, but it's incredibly bureaucratic.
Mm.
It's more like a job than it is like the creative process, because there's so much negotiation through that. So those kind of started to feel like they weren't really the answers for me. And then my son was born so that was sort of like about a 5-year period where I was sort of trying to figure stuff out. Then my son was born in 2005. He's now 19. But I really wanted to be a great parent for him. I really, my parents were artists. There was always a lot of chaos in my childhood growing up. And I really wanted to be a different kind of a parent. And I think if the art had been going really great and I could manage all of that, I would have continued on, but I couldn't really do it. And there were a lot of other like financial issues and other problems that were going on in our family. So
Mm.
I just said, I'm going to really focus on this. And that happened for a period until, I don't know, about 7 years basically. And I didn't really work. I joined the PTA. I got really into it. Like all my creativity went into like designing, like PTA things that then they still do to this day in this public school in Brooklyn Heights. And, I got really into kind of embracing the creativity through my life instead of my art practice. And then in about 2014, I thought, well, I'm gonna go. I was missing it, like this real connection with what I love. And I decided that I was going to go back to painting. And the way I did it was I thought, well, what work do I really love to look at? And what work do I want to think about? And it was very different from the work that I had been making at the end, because I had gotten into the public art. It was highly representational. It had like a lot of ideas baked into it, but I didn't want to go back to where I had been. And so I started making these abstract paintings, small abstract paintings, where I just sort of made them for myself, trying to rediscover vocabulary. And then at the end of a certain time, and I started doing ceramics. I'm trying to remember all the details. I started doing ceramics. None of this was with the expectation of showing work. It was just like, I love making these things. I'm going to do it when I have free time.
Mhm.
And my son was, he was still young. He wasn't as young. He was more independent. And then kind of a number of things happened where the work started getting more and more ambitious, basically, where the scale shifted, the materials got more expansive. Found myself moving from ceramic to sculpture. I mean, like there were all these larger shifts. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, my friends were coming over, artist friends were like, you have like a body of work here. So
Yeah.
that's kind of at that time period is I think that was like 2022. That's when I joined. My friend said told me about network. I joined it. I started doing a lot of that like background stuff that Patty talks about, like artist statement, which is still not good, but it working on, and getting more people into the studio, applying for things, blah blah blah. And that's kind of where I've been at since then, is just
Yeah.
pushing forward with a different mindset though, Jody. Like
Mhm.
giving up and stepping away, what it does is it forces you to reevaluate, like you're saying, in this kind of like existential way, like what is the point of this thing that I'm doing?
Yeah.
And for me, again, going back to that idea of the vocation, not a career, is that I need everyone tries to find meaning in their life, I think, or I hope. And one way to do that is through a creative endeavor where you're like looking at the world around you,
Mm.
reflecting on the world around you, recreating a world,
Yeah.
trying to connect with other people in the world. So, I mean, that's really what the basis of the work is for me anyway.
Yeah.
And to kind of hold it in that space. And so I'm trying really hard to focus on like my own internal logic, like taking information, like doing a show. I hadn't like this. I've done a couple shows upstate where I didn't. They were out of the mainstream. They were like in nonprofit spaces upstate, and people, the responses are kind of like, "Oh, I like this. I don't like this." But now showing in New York, um, I've had a lot more in-depth conversations about like the work itself. And people are like, oh, you should make this bigger, or I like that. You start listening to these conversations. So I want to hear those thoughts and take them in deeply. And I've been taking notes and stuff, but to then really hold on to like, what is really my idea, and
Yeah.
try and consolidate all of those things together. So that's kind of where I'm at now. It's like, how do I want to leave, my time on Earth, and how
Yeah.
do I want to spend it? And how do I want to interact with being a human right now? That experience of being a human. And it's a kind of about like treading lightly, having compassion for others, caring.
Those like local ecosystems, whether they're in your
Mhm.
town or on your block or in your city or whatever, those are the ones that feed us and nourish us anyway, or at least they should if they're healthy. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, what I'm trying to do now is just sort of like spread that out a little bit more,
Yeah.
um, to kind of like not moved circles, but like widen it out a little bit, or create a little bit of a connection here or there, just to hear more voices, meet new
Yeah.
people. It's interesting. Have a constellation of
Yeah.
people in your life, and each one of them kind of fulfills something, and then together you feel generally supported in this whole
Yeah.
endeavor, I hope. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
because I
the
mean, I feel the same way. It's like different people around me help me in different ways, and hopefully I help them too. I don't know. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, going back to the idea of giving up, I mean, the giving up making art, I mean, I think it's like a daily sort of realignment. You know, every day you get up and you say like, okay, here I am. What am I going to do? If you're not going to do it, then what are you going to do? You know, and like going back to what I said before about creating meaning, like how do you say I've created a meaningful life with the short term I have on this planet? You know, like when I kind of got back into doing it again in a more serious way, it's like I want to be a better artist. Like that's always the push for me is like,
Yeah.
how do I make this work better? Like, what do I need to do to clarify the ideas or mix them up more or make it more surprising or something, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So that's like an exciting thing to do. It's like, you know, it's like daily world building or something. I mean, but I think also people who gravitate towards art making generally are the misfits of society. So
Yeah.
they're not
Yeah.
people who easily fit into different, I
Yeah.
don't know, systems and stuff. They're mostly non-conformists in one way or another. And so when you have like all these sort of like oddly shaped puzzle pieces, they don't always fit together so seamlessly.